Greenland, one of the most strategic locations in the Arctic Circle. This is where the interests of the United States and those of China and Russia collide. Influence in the Arctic landing in the wrong hands could be disastrous.
From a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security.
This is a map of the situation in the Arctic Circle region from the perspective of the North Pole. It clearly shows that Greenland is a buffer between hostile powers. On one side is the United States, on the other is Russia and China. The island could even be used to attack America. Rockets launched from the European coast of Russia toward the United States would fly over Greenland. That is why the Americans are keen to increase their presence, including their military presence in the region. The military presence is related to American interests in the Arctic and ensuring the security of Canada and the United States in particular. At the height of the Cold War, there were about 6,000 American soldiers stationed in Greenland, but that number has now fallen to about 200. It is not only Russian missiles that pose a threat. China is planning sea routes through the Arctic, which will shorten its route to the Atlantic, perhaps not just for merchant ships, but also for warships. Washington emphasizes, however, that the goal is not any kind of intervention in Greenland.
That's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new. He talked about it in his first term, and he's not the first U.S. president that has examined or looked at how could we acquire Greenland.
However, European leaders constantly take the Greenland issue as a chance to posture. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has announced that the issue would be raised at a meeting of the coalition of interested parties before backing down. But what is worse, Tusk then spoke about an alleged US invasion of Greenland. A member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization should not attack or threaten another member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Otherwise, NATO would lose its meaning if conflicts or other aggressive actions occurred within the pact. The very fact that Donald Tusk jumped out of the blue and began to speak critically about President Trump and his position on Greenland shows that he's either being sent out by European leaders to do what they do not want to do publicly, so as not to harm their countries, or he is overzealously trying to curry favor with the leaders of Germany, France, or other large European Union countries, which of course looks bad because no one else acts or speaks this way. Politico writes that Tusk has been put forward by Berlin and Brussels to attack Donald Trump at every opportunity, including in relation to Greenland. In this case, but also many previous ones, it is a blunt German or French tool that is sent to bludgeon the opponent. They would never do it themselves, but they can use a blunt tool like Donald Tusk. The Prime Minister of Poland should be working on issues concerning Polish national interest, like opposing the Mercosur deal and the EU migration pact. Instead, he is talking about Greenland. It's a bit strange. It looks as though he has been delegated by some forces, probably German, to attack Donald Trump, who is looking for footholds against China and Russia. Greenland is a dependent territory of Denmark, and Icelandic singer Björk writes about how Denmark has exploited this dependence over the years at the expense of the island's inhabitants. The artist claims that women living on the island in particular were treated as second-class citizens. I wish all Greenlanders blessing in their fight for independence. Icelanders are extremely relieved that they managed to break from the Danish in 1944. We didn't lose our language, my children will be speaking Danish now, and I burst from sympathy for Greenlanders repeatedly, especially like when the case came up about the forced contraception, where 4,500 girls as young as 12 got IUD without their knowledge between 1966 and 1970. The relations between Greenlanders and Danes were quite unenviable. Women were indeed treated as a necessary evil. The Danes' experimentation was disgusting, and I don't think that they are particularly happy with this subjugation imposed by the Danes. I think they can secede at any time, because there is an agreement between Denmark and Greenland. President Trump suggests that they consider whether independence would be the best option, which Copenhagen obviously does not agree with. The final decision will be made by the Greenlanders themselves, who are well aware that their security is also at stake in the face of growing Russian and Chinese aggression.